Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Education Town Hall meeting. I'm Andrea Bond Johnson, your candidate for state representative for House District 82 that covers Crockett, Haywood, and Lauderdale counties. This evening, we are honored to have some of our unsung heroes on the panel. They are on the front lines and are working hard to keep our children safe and giving them the educational tools that they need to be successful. First, I will introduce Mr. Drayton Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins has been an educator for 23 years, 15 of which have been spent as an administrator, including an assistant principal and principal. Additionally, he's a former coach and athletic director. He has served also in Lauderdale County. Currently, he is the director of the director of intermediate and middle school education for Haywood County Schools. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hawkins, today.
All right, thank you for having me.
We also have a current educator in the classroom, Miss Latresa Bond. She's also with the Haywood County Schools, where she teaches the third grade. She teaches science and social studies. We thank you for being with us today, Miss Bond.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we are waiting for Miss Stacy Taylor, who will be joining us momentarily. She's also with the Haywood County Schools and a third grade teacher, and she teaches English language arts. Okay, well, listen, let's get after it. Good evening once again to the panel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And so I want to just start with a very simple question. So how are you all coping and adapting to teaching during COVID? I guess, Ms. Bond, that'll be your question. How are you adapting? Yes.
Yes, well, the transition, it has been different, but actually the transition has been very smooth. We can thank Mr. Hassel and his administration for proactively planning ahead for us.
Okay.
And that has really made things great for us.
Okay.
Our numbers right now, the COVID cases are still high in our county. So we are still following our hybrid schedule, which is a staggered schedule.
Okay.
So we have so many days where students come in and attend on the even day, and then the next on the odd day. So that has really been effective for us. When you think about your educational setting, equity is always important. That's always key. But safety is also key as well. So, having the staggered schedule just to ensure that safety and equity for our students has been great. The safety has been awesome. And also having the smaller numbers, we can really reach out to those students and really, as teachers, we really feel like we can get some effective teaching done by having smaller class sizes.
Awesome. Okay.
So, we're really seeing the benefits from it.
That's good, because I can only imagine the adjustment, that you guys have had to encounter. Now, how are the students handling the changes?
So far, okay. The transition has been, we've noticed it's been good for them as well.
Okay. Yeah. And students are so resilient and they know how to adapt probably much better than adults. We're the ones that's hard to change, right?
Right. That's right. And we've actually had a couple of parents to commend the hybrid schedule right now, because they felt like their student wasn't able to shine as much with having a greater class size. So even with our parents, they're noticing the difference with their students from having a smaller class size.
Okay.
So far, it has been beneficial for us.
So roughly how many do you have at one time in your class in person?
And in person, between seven to 8 students.
7 to 8 students.
Right.
Now, are you teaching them at the same time that you're teaching your virtual students? Or that's on separate days? How does that work?
Gotcha. Now, we also, that's one thing for Haywood County, we've been blessed to have a separate set of teachers to teach virtually.
Oh,
So we're not teaching the virtual students. We're just, teach our in-house. And the lessons that I teach on my Monday will be the same lesson that I'll teach on Tuesday. So the students are getting like a double dose.
okay. So the virtual students are being taught by someone else.
Right. Yes,
So
ma'am.
you don't have to worry about that.
No, ma'am. We don't.
Oh, I didn't understand. I didn't realize that. So that's pretty good. That's
Right.
pretty good. So
Yes.
Monday, you have your approximately 7 students that come in on Monday.
Right.
And Tuesday, you're doing the exact same lesson.
Right.
And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So now, do they ever come together at all as one big class, or they're continuing to be separated?
As of right now, we're still staggered right now up until December.
And how do you handle Fridays?
Fridays is a review. It's a review day for my Monday, Wednesday, and then sometimes the Monday it's just review days. That's how we use those.
And so, which students come in on Friday? How do you do that?
Well, your Friday students, that's your Monday, Wednesday.
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson, could I clarify that just a little bit?
Okay.
The way that our schedule is set up is we do it by odd and even days. So if a kid was given when they started school, they were given a day where they were odd or where they were even, and that's just a day of the week, like a day of the week that ends in a 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's the even day, and so a day of the week that ends in 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Like today is October the 5th, so that would be an odd day. So one week the kid will probably come to school three days in a week, and then the next week they would come 2 days in a week. And what we tried to do was we tried to pair them with a sibling, like just say if my 2 kids were in school together, we tried to make sure that we paired them with the sibling, so that they would be in school on the same time. So that's kind of how that goes.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Yes,
there she is. Hi, Miss Taylor. It's so glad you were able to join us.
Hello.
Good to see you. We are just discussing the your classes and how you have your even and odd days and then your virtual learners. We found out something today that I didn't know, that you too, I'm assuming you don't have to
Say that again. I didn't hear you now.
Oh, I don't know what that noise is. But
that's my text. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So do you teach? You don't have to teach virtually either?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, great. Okay. Well, Ms. Bond was just, sharing that with us, and thank you so much for that. Mr. Hawkins, let me ask you a question. How would you rate the state's response to COVID when it comes to education?
Well, I would say, ma'am.
Do you think you're getting the support you need and the students are getting and the staff? Is everybody getting really what they need to be safe and making sure the kids are getting what they need?
Well, I mean, I think that overall that I would say that it leaves a lot to be desired. I know that there are several probably million students in the state, but those are the kids that we have, and it's our job, regardless if we have 3,000 of them or if we have 100,000 of them, it's our job locally to keep those kids safe. So I feel like that it's our state leaders' job, even more so than ours, to keep those kids safe. Honestly, I mean, they did send masks, for kids. I will give them credit for sending those masks. We have, I think, 2 masks available for kids that might not have one. So I will give them credit for that. As far as the sanitizer is concerned, there were some bottles of sanitizer sent, so those things have been done. But overall, I think that I would say that the response that probably educators are more upset about is the fact that with all of what's going on, we have a whole lot of brand new going on. We have all these protocols that we have to follow. We have just trying to keep everybody safe every day. We're trying to do that. And at the same time, we still don't have word on what evaluations. So we're pushing on like evaluations are going to happen. So that's adding extra stress to teachers' workload. We're also, haven't been given any clarification about state testing, and so that we're assuming that that's going to happen. So having to prepare for all of that in the middle of a pandemic is kind of stressful. I won't say not kind of stressful. That's stressful in itself. I mean, when you look at the federal level, I think that DeVos has said that there won't be any waivers or anything given this year for testing or anything like that. So that's just something on these ladies' plates and on all the rest of the teachers' plates that we shouldn't have to be dealing with in the middle of this pandemic. So on that side of it, I'll say that we haven't been given the support that we need to be successful, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I agree. I think a lot of it is just the lack of understanding as far as what we do every day and on a day-to-day basis inside of our classrooms. I think if the level of understanding was there, I think it would make a difference with our legislative decision making when it comes to education.
I understand that. Okay. I like that. Okay. Ms. Taylor, do you want to add anything?
Just piggybacking off of what Mr. Hawkins said. Again, I think it's just a concern for us with evaluations and state testing. I think that's the biggest thing is we weren't about evaluation scores and we weren't about testing as far as the kids.
Right.
Okay.
Could I add something else to that?
Absolutely. What is that? I'm trying to stop that noise. It's something that's interfering here. Okay, Mr. Hawkins.
That's me. I'm sorry. I'm on my phone.
And when
okay, go ahead.
When you go back to what happened last semester, I mean, we left school last semester on March the 13th, getting ready for a spring break, and we never came back to school. So, you know, you're talking about the learning loss that we had from that point to this point, you know, so that's something else that we have to deal with. You know, we already have kids that come from tough situations, low socioeconomic, you know, homes. And now that we have to deal with that learning loss, and there's no way to fully recoup that learning, but we're trying to go back and plug those gaps that already existed prior to March the 13th and now that are even magnified after March the 13th. And so then on top of that, now we're having to worry about those things that I was talking about, those evaluations, that state mandated testing. So that's a whole lot to ask people. You know, people lost loved ones, people have lost jobs in the course of this. So that's just a lot to have to deal with.
It doesn't seem that it would be fair to hold you accountable to the test scores and the regular or normal evaluations, because these are not normal circumstances.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So and let me ask a question about this. So our students, we are in rural West Tennessee. We have issues with the internet. Are you finding that any of your students cannot access the internet, are not able to do what's needed to be done to get their work done? Are any of you seeing any of that with the kids?
Well, Ms. Taylor.
On the school level, I do feel like that is an issue because we are seeing a lot more kids leaving virtual and coming in person. And that's one of the major reasons why, is because of internet issues.
Right.
And speaking on that, you know, we gave out devices. We gave out devices at the National Guard for a couple of days and at the office. And one of the things that we asked in the survey was, did you have access to the internet? And so we had to provide modified devices for some parents that did not have access to the internet. Well, you still have the issue of if you're in a certain part of the county and your cell phone doesn't work in that part of the county, then that modified device would not work in that part of the county. So just like what Ms. Taylor said, you know, being in and out the office all the time, I see parents that are coming in, and some of it is the fact that they don't have dependable internet. Even though that we've given them this device and given them this Wi-Fi device, they still don't have dependable internet running to their homes that allow them to be able to access that. So
even giving them the Wi-Fi device, like a hotspot, so to speak, they still cannot access it because of the area. They don't have the broadband in that area. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Is that correct? Oh, okay. And so they have no choice but to come into the schools.
Right.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay.
So now you're forcing a parent to have to make a decision for their kid that they might not be comfortable with, just based on the fact of that they don't have reliable internet to be able to access virtual curriculum.
Sure. Okay. I can see that. Okay. So now one thing I consistently hear from educators and administrators and school board members is that our schools are not properly funded. So can you talk about what fully funded schools means to you and why you feel is critical for our students' success? Fully funded schools. Drayton.
Okay. All right. So just to give you a little bit of background on what the BEP formula is, it was started in, I think, around 1992. So that's quite some time ago, to allocate state funds equitably and fairly. So we have the Memphises of the world, and we have the Nashvilles of the world, and then we have the Brownsvilles of the world. So of course we don't have the ability to generate revenue like some of those places do. So the BEP formula was designed to be able to distribute those funds equitably. Of course, we wouldn't get as many funds as somewhere like those cities that I named called for. And so it's funded based on what we call ADM, mostly on the ADM, the average daily membership. And what that is the amount of kids that we have in our schools on a daily basis, the amount of kids that we have attending our schools. So each one of those kids has a dollar amount pretty much that's attached to them that the state says that we'll fund you. And, of course, that the local government has to match some of those funds as well. So to be fully funded, to me, I think that they use that to say that they are fully funding it according to that antiquated formula. They probably are funding it, but to be able to function on a daily basis, no, ma'am, they are not. I think that Hayward County Schools, that we fund 36 positions above what the BEP calls for. And so that means that if we're funding those positions, that means that money has to come from somewhere. And that money is probably coming from us. And we're already strapped for cash as well. To give you an example of what some of those positions are, like school nurses, guidance counselors. So think about like now, we have in the past had about 6 schools, and we had 3 school nurses. So those school nurses had to travel from school to school. Well, this year, our superintendent and school board saw fit to fund school nurses for every school that we have. And that's important. And that's important, period. But that's important in a time like now when these protocols and all these things, we're not medical professionals. And so we have someone in our building that we can call on that can give us good, it's sound advice about what we should do with a kid. Also with the school counselors, kids have a whole lot of issues going on. Just say, for instance, at the high school, they have some issues going on with them personally, or also they need some guidance towards getting to college. So we're funding positions above what the state calls for, and that's at the expense of our own school system. So, I hope that kind of gives you a little background into what that's all about.
Right. And to add to what Mr. Hawkins was saying, it also deals with teacher supplies too with BEP fund. We are allowed $200 every year to just get supplies for our classroom. So if we were to lose that, we wouldn't be able to, supply our classes like we need to for our students. So
okay. So you currently do get $200 per year?
Yeah.
To help with the funding, and that has been going on for years now?
It has been ever since I've been teaching. Yeah.
Okay. Me too.
Okay, $200. Now, is that sufficient? Because I know I see a lot of parents that are also sending supplies to the classroom. We call on the parents to help out. So I'm assuming that is not sufficient for an entire year, for an entire classroom.
Right. And when we think about supplies, it's mainly instructional material that we use it for. For other things like your sanitizer and your wipes and things of that nature, we have to ask parents for.
Okay.
But it does help. It does help. The $200 does help.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to know. Good to know. So how do you guys think Tennessee compares to other states when it comes to your compensation? And let me just start off by saying, I feel you all deserve higher wages. I think about if I had to teach my 2 sons I do not have the skills nor the patience to put up with just 2 kids. And I can only imagine you guys having to deal with a full classroom. And so I am in full support of you guys getting raises. Okay, just so let me just put that out there. But how does Tennessee compare to other states at the time? Anybody? Drayden, can you answer that one?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like you said earlier, I've been around a couple of decades now, and honestly, I don't remember the last time that we probably have gotten a raise. And I won't say it's not because people like you don't. People don't feel like we deserve one. It just doesn't seem like that's a high concern. You know, like we had the governor say that we were going to have a raise this year, and then all of a sudden that disappeared. So, you know, you have people like everybody that's on this screen that have dedicated the majority of our lives to educating students. And we do it because of a passion for, you know, a passion for improving the life of a kid.
Right.
And also, you know, locally, we can't compete with some other places. You know, we can't compete with what Jackson pays. We can't compete with what Tipton County pays. But you still have dedicated people that come here, not always because they're from here, but they come here and they land here and they stay here because we get a chance to make an impact on kids. So when you look across I hadn't checked it lately because there's no need of doing it and getting depressed. But the last time that I checked, I mean, we probably were in the bottom 5 or 10%, seemed like, of national teacher salaries. So, you know.
You mean Haywood County?
No, I mean Tennessee, just Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, I think that what has happened with this pandemic and kids being at home more and even with the virtual education, I think that has shown what teachers really do. You know, like you said, you don't just only have your 2 kids. You have 20 kids or 25 kids. Yeah. And, you know, it's a skill. It's a skill that it takes to be able to do what we do. And I don't think everybody recognizes that. And you have teachers that pursue advanced degrees and go into debt, you know, to be able to make certain moves or to further their education just for their own personal reasons. And you still don't get compensated for it. So, you know, that's something that I feel like we really could improve.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I agree.
You agree? Okay.
I agree.
So you mentioned, Drayden, that you all were promised raises. I believe the governor said you guys were going to get raises. And then when they passed the budget, they took those raises out. Is that correct?
I think that's how that happened. Miss Latricia, you know, Miss Latricia works with HCEA, so she might know a little bit more about the workings of that than I didn't now then.
And that's what happened, Miss Bond? That's how?
Yes, ma'am. That's what happened. They took those funds and used them somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay. So I can only imagine how that made you feel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am very sorry.
Not a good feeling, but you have to think about the why we do it.
Okay, exactly right. I understand that. Well, just so you know, had I been there in Nashville, I would have not voted on that. I would not have voted to take your raises away, just so you know, because you guys deserve it. And just thinking about the pandemic and all the things that you guys had to adjust to just to make it right for these kids. Oh my gosh, you definitely deserve so much more, I believe, than what you're getting. Okay, listen, let's talk about a really hot topic. Vouchers, ESAs. Can someone share your thoughts with the audience about how would you define vouchers? Is it a good thing or not so good thing for the public schools? And why? Mr. Hawkins, I keep picking on you. Go for it.
Well, I would say that when you talk about the education savings account, and to me it seems like they gave it that fancy name because it went down a little bit easier than vouchers. You know, I think vouchers for years has had such a negative connotation that they figured they would put a little sugar on top of it and name it the ESA. Basically, to me, and to make a long story short, it's the death. It would be the death of public education as we know it. Because what happens with those savings accounts, like we talked about, those BEP funds and those dollars that are attached to a kid. Well, basically, that's saying that any kid that's in a school system that's struggling can take this savings account money, and you would take that BEP money, and you would take it with you towards attending, like maybe a private school, towards tuition or whatever. Well, the very kid that this system is built on the backs of, kids that are unfortunate, those are the kids that really can't take advantage of that, because that money won't pay for that education at that private school. So it's really a way for those that have to benefit from it, and those that don't have, who it's designed for, will still be left behind. And it would be, like I said, it would be the death of public education as we know it. So I'm a product of public education. My wife is, my oldest son is already, my youngest son is more than halfway through. I believe in what a public education can do. And so to me, to have legislators to fight for the death of what I do every day, that's just a slap in the face. And without saying too much, I got an opportunity to travel to Nashville when they were voting on all of that, and just see how all of that went. It was just totally eye-opening to me, just to see that it just didn't seem like people were concerned. We could just vote on this and move on like nothing. So
right. Yeah, and back to what Mr. Hawkins was saying, I think vouchers for public education is totally a negative. It's you pulling those funds from public, putting them into a private setting, and it hurts. It hurts our students. It hurts teachers. You can have overcrowded classrooms, and as we were talking about that earlier, the benefits of having a good normal class size is beneficial for students. But when your funds are being pulled, it hurts. It hurts.
Okay. Well, and it's interesting because Mr. Hawkins, you mentioned going to Nashville, actually to visit with the legislature, and I did too. I went and I visited with our current representative, who is my opponent. I will just be transparent. And I met with him and I asked him, and he says, Andrea, they're now calling vouchers ESAs, just like what you said, Mr. Hawkins. It's under a different name, and I am not going to vote for it. I said, okay, you're giving me your word. And he says, yes, they're calling them ESAs. I know it won't be good for public schools. I'm not going to vote for it. I don't know what happened, because he seemed to have been adamant at that moment. But when he got to the place to actually vote, he voted for vouchers. And I mean, I was so disappointed in that, because I think it passed by one vote. And that's why it's just so important that we have our representatives and our leaders that are really going to do what's in the best interest of our schools and our students. Okay. Right. So, and I think, Mr. Hawkins, I don't know if you were there that day for the vote. Were you actually there when they voted?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
so
ma'am. I was right there.
I can only imagine how you felt, because even when I got the word, I really didn't believe it. I'm like, what? I don't understand. But anyway, we shall move on. So listen, so do you think that with all the things that are happening now, that they should just do away with the standardized testing for the year? Do you think they should just do away with it? They should, what would you recommend that they do when it comes to the standardized testing?
I'll let these ladies speak on that one.
Okay.
I would recommend that they would do away with it again this year for me.
Okay.
I feel like, again, even though we are back in school, going back to what Mr. Hawkins said, we have a lot of students who we need to try to build that gap. They have a big gap that they have missed out on from last year. And it's up to us to try to get them back on track. And I just don't think that having standardized tests this year is a good idea.
And it's not a true picture. It's not a true picture for the teachers, nor is the students' ability, because of all of the distractions that we have going on right now.
So, and then I would think, and I don't want to speak for them because I know they can, but none of us are afraid of accountability. None of us feel like we should just be able to go in the schools and shut our doors and teach what we want to teach and do what we want to do. But I think that with that accountability, it comes a little bit of give and take. We were geared up and ready to go for the couple years where all those mishaps happened and we couldn't test and all that. All of that wasn't our fault. We were ready. We were doing what we needed to do. We were doing what we were supposed to do, and we weren't able to test. Mm-hmm. With this pandemic coming, this was nobody would have seen this in a million years.
I know, right?
But you have to have a certain level of, I hate to say it, but you have to have a certain level of common sense and a certain level of just thinking about what people need, and right here where we are right now, and with all what we're dealing with right now, that's the last thing that any of us need. Now we get on the other side of this and we're able to get back to, I hate to call it normal because we don't know what normal is anymore, right. But we're able to get back to something that looks a little bit like more than what we're familiar with. Then, going back to some form of accountability, I don't think that any of us have a problem with that. Now, I'm not saying that we all agree with how we're held accountable, but at the same time, I think that right now is not the time for all of that. If people that make some of these decisions will actually come and see what is taking place, right, and have conversations about what it took from March the 13th to get to the opening of school. There were a lot of conversations that were held and a lot of thoughts and a lot of things hashed out, So I just don't feel like right now is the time for that part of it,
Okay. I agree. So like one of the reasons I decided to run was because I believe that we need to put people over politics. Let's just stop being so political and just use some common sense, find some common ground on important issues like healthcare and education. So I believe that preparing the next generation of students for success should be a top priority for the state. And that doing so begins with supporting our schools, our public education. Mm-hmm. So, which also I think we need to do just what you said, Dre. They need to actually listen to the educators and the administrators. They should have been in on your meetings earlier to listen to you guys. So do you feel that your elected leaders value your experience, and do they really listen and ask for your input when they're making these policy decisions? Do they ask for your input when they make these policy decisions?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I mean, the only way I know how to do it is just to be straightforward and upfront. No, ma'am. You don't feel like you have a seat at the table. And I'm not saying that as a candidate, just like you campaigning for this position, you might not make it around to, you can't make it. It's not humanly possible to make it around to every home in these 3 counties, but hear from different segments of the population and to hear from the people that are out here. These ladies are the people that are in the trenches with the kids each and every day. I'm in buildings, but I'm not directly affecting kids like they are. So for us to make decisions on a local level, for us to make decisions on a state level, that requires some sitting down and listening to these people. If we really want to get to what the root of the problem is, if we really want to move this state forward and move this section of the state forward, we have to sit down and hear some things from the people that are actually doing the work.
Absolutely, right. I agree with that.
Right.
I mean, you all are in the trenches. You all know what works and what will not work. You know the how the kids adapt to certain things, how they learn. I would think that would be the best thing to do is listen to you all, and then you make your policy around that information. Yeah. So, okay. Anybody else? All righty. No. So,
Mr. Hawkins, he said it. He explained it.
Okay. So in your opinion, what would you think are the biggest challenges to public education in Tennessee? And what would be the best ways for us to address them? What are the biggest challenges? Besides the pandemic? I understand that's probably number one at the moment.
Right.
But even prior to the pandemic, what do you think was the biggest challenge that you guys were facing? Was it resources? Did you have enough resources?
I can't hear.
Huh?
I think she said she wasn't able to hear you.
Oh, the volume went down. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. Were you getting ready to say something, Ms. Bond?
No, ma'am, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. So I was just talking about, like, what are some of your biggest challenges in the public schools right now? Would it be not having the resources needed? Would it be your buildings? Are your buildings safe and secure and they are adjusting to the seasons? What would you say are the biggest challenges?
It's the uncertainty of how everything, as far as what's going to happen. As of right now, I feel like we have a good plan in place right now as far as COVID, as far as safety. But one challenge I've noticed with our students, when you think about COVID has affected everyone. So I think a challenge for us right now is our social emotional support that we can offer our students, and even our staff. Knowing that the support is there, and that there's someone's there for them to support them. However, just give them and help them with whatever is needed.
Okay. All right.
Also, I know the pandemic is one of our biggest challenges, but with that comes, we still have students. We still are getting new students, and it's October. We still having students coming in, so that right there is a challenge, because even though they coming in late, we still got to get them up to where they need to be.
Where were they
with
prior
the other students?
They're coming in late. Where were they? Were they in school?
Well, they're coming in, some of them are coming in because they're having difficulties with the virtual, so they got to come in person. And so we get new students every day.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like that's a challenge.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Because they're because they are behind, so we got to kind of catch them up with the other students.
And with that, like what Ms. Taylor was talking about, with that, we did have a deadline that was a couple of weeks ago that we were supposed to start taking kids from virtual to in person. And when she says that they're behind, we are using two different curriculum for that. Our in-person curriculum, we have, we've had it. This is the third year. Our virtual curriculum, we didn't want to try to take our in-person curriculum and have our teachers trying to fit that into a virtual world. So we did something different. So when she says they're behind because of where they are, in the curriculum. That I just want to add a little clarity to that.
Sure. I got you.
And one thing that I would say, along those same lines is prior to the pandemic, like what we're talking about with those funds, that if we have fully funded schools, and when I'm talking about fully funded, I'm talking about that are funding those counselors and those nurses and all of that, then those dollars can be utilized to do something else. We've talked for several years about, and we talked a few months ago about, we probably wouldn't be able to be one-to-one where every kid had a device, with them. But with the CARES Act funding coming through and with some more pools of money coming through, Haywood County Schools is moving towards every kid having a device, for them. So think about if those things were able to happen in years that this pandemic wasn't going on. If we had everything funded and if we had money where we could utilize it where we see fit, with what we already have. It's kind of like at your own house. You have some things that come up that you need to take care of, and some that you put on the back burner. Not to say that you don't want to do them, but you don't always have the funds to be able to do that. So, just having those funds, having that formula fully funded and schools fully funded would help out tremendously,
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, does anyone else have anything else before we close out tonight?
I think it was one in the private chat. I think Mr. Mann said, "What are the class sizes looking like for us?" So,
Okay.
The class sizes, well, with the hybrid schedule, with the odd and even days. So for right now, the class sizes are small. So like on an even day, I would have 7 to 8 students. Same thing for an odd day. So right now, the class sizes are small right now.
Okay.
and then before we close, Ms. Johnson, I would just like to say, like I think Ms. Latrice said earlier, it was, and you're talking about listening and all of that. I have to give Mr. Hassel credit for, starting the process probably back in April or so. And I mean, we were on so many Zoom calls, and there was people on there. We were talking about every situation that you could think of, and everybody that was on that call, and there were several of us, had an opportunity to say what they needed to say and give their input. And also surveys were sent out to teachers about how do you feel about returning to school, and that's how we got some of our virtual teachers to be able to, those teachers that might have some health issues or some concerns. So, I'm just proud to be a part of Haywood County and a part of Haywood County schools right now, because we have people reaching out to us from all across the state because of the things that we have put in place. We had a group come from Nashville, from a middle school about a week or two ago, and they wanted to see the protocols that we had in place. They want to come around and see, all the way down to how we have our entrances with the plexiglass up, how we have our kids section off in the cafeteria, in the libraries, in the gym. So, there are a lot of cutting edge things that are going on right here in Haywood County. I know we always think about we're here and we don't have a whole lot going on, but really we do, and so if we don't pat our own selves on the back, then, we probably won't get pat on the back. And that's just not what educators do. Educators we just buckle our chin straps, tie up our shoes real tight, and we go to work, and so ladies like these ladies on here have been resilient this year and just taking everything as it comes. And so, we have a great group of people here. And we just want whoever represents us, to just come and spend time, talk to us, hear us, take our concerns back to Capitol Hill, and be able to move Haywood County Schools forward, because we got kids in this community that may never leave. And so what we do for them inside these walls and the opportunities that we prepare them for, the TCATs and all of that, that might be life-changing stuff. And if a vote or two up on Capitol Hill can help funnel some money towards Haywood County, that's changing lives for kids, So just if that's you, if that's your opponent, whoever it is, just keeping that in the forefront of their mind while they're there representing us,
So I hope I will be given the opportunity to have that seat at the table, because I am more than willing to listen to you and take back your suggestions to Capitol Hill. And that's why we're having this town hall tonight. Anybody else have anything to say before we close out? Well,
go ahead.
Okay. Did you have something?
I was just going to say thank you for the opportunity. And it's one thing we have to think about as voters, like I said earlier, when we think about having our representatives, we just need to think about people that are going to represent us and appreciate what we do every day. If they just have some idea of what we're doing, that would really affect, like I said, their decision making when it comes to educators.
Sure. And one thing too, I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and it's so good when you see the community also joining in to help out. I remember when my kids were little, I would go in and read to the class and start them off with these little books, like in kindergarten when they started reading. Right. And I would have a little section of kids I would read to. And I remember coming to your class, Miss Taylor, on several occasions to read to your class as well. I remember that. And I think it's good because, first of all, the kids are seeing a new face coming in, and they usually enjoy the books that we're reading to them. Right. So, and I want to commend Haywood County, because I know that people have stepped up and tried to help out as much as we can for all of the kids, here.
Right. having all of those stakeholders make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, thank you all so much for being on this panel tonight. And as we close, I just want to say how grateful we are to all the educators, the administrators, the school board members that support the campaign, and how grateful we are to all the educators for all the hard work you do every day and inspiring all of these students. And few things make me prouder than hearing public school advocates say a vote for Andrea is a vote for public education.
Right.
So we will close. Remember, early voting begins October 14th through the 29th, and election day is November the 3rd. Thank you all. Remember to be safe and mask up. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.